Welcome to the show, Ivy Nation Sports Talk. We kick off the first full week of Notre Dame football's off season, and there's plenty to talk about, as it turns out, today. Along with Vince DiDario, I'm Sean Stires. I don't even remember the last time I did a show in my own office.
That's a
here.
Great, solid point, because it's been a minute, for sure.
Yeah.
You're a world traveler. You're a world traveler.
World traveler.
And thank goodness that the internet is nationwide and not just in South Bend and Mishawaka.
Some might even say worldwide.
Some might.
Worldwide.
WW. Yes. Some might say that.
Some might.
So, yeah.
But yeah. I'm going to tell you what, Vince, after our, driving and, all that last week, I don't think I've ever been more tired calling a basketball game than I was Thursday night at Boston College.
Well, it's funny that you say that because
I don't know how many times I yawned during the breaks.
Because Thursday is the day that it actually caught up to me.
Yeah.
Because I was fine on Wednesday. Like I figured driving all day Tuesday, I would be shot on Wednesday. I was fine. I was like, we can do this anytime. And then I woke up Thursday and I was like, oh my goodness. Like I am exhausted.
Yeah.
The whole day, just exhausted.
And our flight ended up getting canceled. That's why we couldn't do a show. Our charter flight got canceled Thursday night after the game, so we couldn't come back till Friday. But we had, plenty of time Friday morning, and I slept about an hour later than I usually sleep. I think I've slept more in the last 3 days, like good sleep in the last 3 days than I've had in a long time. So
That's good.
Was welcome. That was welcome.
I think I'm back to normal now, just like, normally fatigued. But Thursday I was dragging. And when as much as I felt bad for you on Friday of missing your flight, having to hang out in the airport and all that, I was like, I'm okay with no show. Like I was okay.
I mean, honestly, because, I was toying with, do we just push it back, do it a little bit later? And I'm like, well, it's Friday night. And I had a feeling that you were probably as tired as me, and we were just so here we are. It's Monday, brand new week. Plenty of things to talk about.
Oh my goodness, plenty of things to talk about. Holy cow!
I mean, the off season's not even officially 1 week old yet. Like that doesn't happen until 11:30ish tonight, something like that. That it's actually a week old. But I mean, a lot has obviously happened since last week's national championship game. You got Al Golden. Al Golden had his introductory press conference down in Cincinnati today.
Yeah, see, I saw some snippets
of
that today. Obviously very complimentary of Notre Dame and his time at Notre Dame and all of those things. But why wouldn't he be? No, completely agree with that. But when he said he saw the stadium and felt like he was at home, it's like, oh, okay.
All right. So we had Al Golden leave, Chad Bowden, we had all the transfer portal stuff obviously last week, but then Chad Bowden at the end of the week, it's like, here's a little news dump for you.
Yeah.
Going into the weekend, Chad Bowden's leaving. We'll talk about that here in a second. But in the meantime, looks like Marcus Freeman is ready to hire Al Golden's replacement, the successor, Chris Ash. He's coached at a lot of different places. I mean, you look at his resume, it's literally it's pretty long resume, but I think the highlights for our purposes are defensive coordinator at Wisconsin, defensive coordinator at Ohio State, defensive coordinator at Texas. Am I leaving any out? Was there one other stop? I'm trying to think off the top of my
head. Well, head coach at Rutgers.
Head coach at Rutgers, obviously. But I mean, that's kind of, he's coached in the NFL. He's been an assistant coach with the Jaguars and the Raiders, and
he's been in the NFL. So, for the last 3 stops, he's been in the NFL, I believe.
Right, Arkansas. Thank you, John. I knew there was another one. I didn't write it down. John Kristofic with the save there. Arkansas was his other DC in college. So, Vince, your initial reaction to this news? It's not official yet, but Brian, IB, and a lot of other outlets are pretty firm that this is happening. That Chris Ash is happening here at Notre Dame. So, what do you think?
So my initial reaction was who? Like that was my initial reaction. Like it doesn't. like I am not as dialed into, assistant coaches across college football as maybe some other people are. You know what I mean? And so I know that a guy like Brian is very dialed into, good assistant coaches out there, guys on the short list, all of those different things. For me, I was like, I don't know who this is. And so, he's the head coach at Rutgers. Okay, like I could name one head coach at Rutgers, and it was Greg Schiano. And the only reason I can name Greg Schiano is because they were good when he was the head coach, and he's the head coach again. Like it's the only reason I know who the head coach, like any head coach at Rutgers, is because of Greg Schiano. That's it. I don't know anybody else. So like saying that he was the head coach at Rutgers doesn't do anything for me. He was the defensive coordinator at Ohio State when they won the national championship, I do believe. Okay, that's a resume booster. I'm not going to sugarcoat it because I don't know as much about this guy as other people do. And so for me, it's going to have to be, number one, I'm going to need to do a bunch more research when I have time. And number two, it's going to be, what are you going to do at Notre Dame? And we're not going to get the answer to that for a really long time. You know what I mean?
Literally. Like, we're how many months away? We're 8 months away from,
You can make any kind of assumption or pull an opinion out of like spring ball and all of that. But I think even more so than any other year, this spring ball is going to be very vanilla and very like guys are going to be sitting out and everything just because of how long the season went. Like I just don't see this spring being super competitive and like that whole deal. Right. So we're not going to know about this Ash character until well into the football season in 25. So to be honest with you, I'm going to reserve judgment at this point. I respect what Brian has to say about him and how he's not super happy with the hire. I get it. But for me, I'm reserving judgment because I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure. And that's my honest opinion.
I think I'm more in that ballpark as well. Because my initial reaction was, this is far from a household name. I was imagining a lot of people just going out and it's like Chris Ash and they're Googling Chris Ash. And, and that's obviously what everyone has done. They pulled up his resume and his Wikipedia and all these different things because we were hearing names like Jim Knowles and Jim Leonard and Joe Rossi, names we're more familiar with. Mike Mickens, of course, as well. And we'll talk about that aspect of it, in a minute. This is not really who I think most of us were expecting. And so I don't know if maybe, I don't know if maybe some of the shock of that is part of this, not just because like you were hearing these big fancy names like Jim Knowles and whatever else. I'm going to have to, I've got to switch my internet here for a second. That's what I was doing. It was off. And so I'm on the bad internet right now. I don't know if you've seen me glitching or anything.
No, you've been good so far. You've been good so far. Yeah.
I'm going to switch it to make sure that we're okay. Good. So I don't know what's going to happen while I do that.
No, that's fine. And look, I was, with Notre Dame where they are at, right? They are, coming off of a national championship season. They are, the number 2 team in the country and played like it throughout the entire season. I mean, and I thought that they would have the leverage to get a better name.
Right.
Okay. That's, I'll say that much, right? If this ends up happening, if he ends up being the defensive coordinator, I feel like they could have done better from a name standpoint. Now, maybe he's going to be the perfect fit for Notre Dame in this role, doing what he's asked to do at Notre Dame. And maybe they're still going to, he's just going to pick up the torch where Al Golden left off. I don't know the answer to that, but I will say I thought there was going to be a bigger name coming in. You know what I mean? Just overall, not anybody in particular, but just a bigger name. When you hear rumblings that Jim Knowles, reached out to Notre Dame. And
they just went to a national championship game.
Exactly. That's why, I said that when you were re-upping. But no, that, to your point though, right? Like you would have thought they've got the leverage to get a better name than Coach Ash.
Yeah. Now, in his defense, he was defensive coordinator of Ohio State's national championship team. He was there for a few years with Urban Meyer. Unimpressive run as Rutgers head coach. And I know a lot of people want to hold that against him, and also a position coach with both the Jacksonville Jaguars and the now Las Vegas Raiders. I don't think they were in Vegas yet when he was there. Maybe the tail end of it. But I don't like the head coach thing. I don't care what he was or wasn't as a head coach.
Right.
Like, because there's such a huge difference between being a head coach and being a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator. It's just completely different. And especially when you're talking about a place like Rutgers, because let's just be honest, Greg Schiano is literally the only coach who's ever done anything.
Correct.
At Rutgers.
Which is why he's the only coach's name as a head coach that I've ever known at Rutgers, ever.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry. I just don't know.
Exactly. Every other coach at Rutgers, head coach at Rutgers, has failed as well. So I'm not going to hold that against Ash or anyone else who's trying to be head coach there. And look, some guys are just not head coaches, but are really good coordinators. It's like that AAA to major league, kind of thing. If you're going to use a baseball analogy, a lot of guys are just really good at calling the plays, setting up the scheme, coaching it up, and all that different stuff. You like Josh McDaniels is a prime example of that. He's had a couple chances as a head coach, has not panned out, but he's always been a really good coordinator. That's why he's got opportunities to be a head coach. Wade Phillips is another one. Great defensive coordinator, but not cut out to be a head coach, So, and like the Jacksonville and the Raiders things, again, like his year in Jacksonville, two of them, like one, like these are two of the most dysfunctional organizations in the NFL, and he was a position coach there. But, like he worked for Urban, he coached for Urban Meyer at Ohio State. He coached for Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. I mean, that was obviously a one-off experiment that didn't work out for anybody. It obviously didn't work out for Urban Meyer, didn't work out for Jacksonville. But there are statistically, like this guy, like it's interesting to. I guess I'll save some of this stuff, but I think I agree with your basic premise that look. They just played in a national championship game a week ago. Like a week ago, right now, we were getting into Mercedes-Benz Stadium over there, and the team was there, beginning their warm-ups, getting ready to play in a national championship.
Right about now.
Yeah, that's right. And I would have thought that after that, the name that we would be hearing for this, if Marcus Freeman was going to go outside, would have been a lot bigger than Chris Ash. Someone who is, again, he's got an extensive background as a defensive coordinator, but at the same time I don't think that he's ever been considered among the ranks of the elite defensive coordinators in college football.
And I think based on what I've heard and what I've been able to figure out in the small amount of time that I've been able to figure, I agree with you. I think that is very accurate. And I even went back and I tried to find like where Freeman and Ash might have crossed paths at one point or another, because I mean, look, we all know that
they did not.
It's all about who you know what I mean? Like, and I couldn't find anything,
what I mean? Interesting connection between the two of them, though, is they have the same agent.
Aha. See, I didn't know that.
Yes. Okay. So while they didn't cross paths in their coaching careers previously, they have the same agent currently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotcha. The old dinner parties. Gotcha.
Right.
The Christmas party at the agent's house. Okay. Got it. So, maybe they've talked ball in the past and, Freeman heard what he wanted to hear and, that kind of a thing. Maybe that's how this all went down. I don't know how it all went down, but if you're going, look, elite coaches make mistakes when it comes to hiring assistant coaches. They also hire guys that they feel very comfortable with for one reason or another. Freeman made this hire, and at this point, I am willing to give Freeman the benefit of the doubt because we all think Marcus Freeman's a good head coach. I think we can all agree on that. And so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, at least for a while, on this hire. Like that's where I guess see, Sean, I'm just a glasses half full kind of guy.
But you are, Vince. That's what you've always been known as.
Right.
I mean, look, there's a lot of negative reaction to this. And I
Correct.
think it comes down to kind of what you're talking about. I think that the one question you have to ask yourself is, do you trust Marcus Freeman? That's the question.
Right.
And I think that there are a couple of sides to this. I do think it's worth remembering that when Marcus Freeman hired Al Golden, like,
there was the people that weren't
as
happy
good
about
as
that.
Al Golden turned out, when Marcus Freeman hired Al Golden, the reaction was still mixed back then. Like, you're bringing, like the big feather in his cap was obviously he'd just come off, being in a Super Bowl with the Cincinnati Bengals, but he was also a position coach. He was the linebackers coach. He wasn't a coordinator there. And it had been 16 years since he had actually run his own defense and been a coordinator, even though he had been a head coach. And that was another feather in his cap. Well, he has, the background as a head coach, obviously at Temple and Miami, but he'd been in the NFL for a few years. And again, he was a position coach in the NFL for a few years. So there were questions about that. There was a lot of doubt as to whether or not, he could actually get it done running a defense again at the college level, since it had been 16 years since he had done that.
Right.
And after his first season, let's all, rewind this thing. There was still plenty of doubt about Al Golden, even after year one, because there were some breakdowns. There were fits, all this different stuff. They were, they were good in spurts, but there were, enough questions like, is this actually the guy? Is this the defense that's going to take this team to the next level? And look what turned out over the last 2 years, right?
Right.
And
absolutely.
So I'm not towing the company line and saying thanks for the Kool-Aid, Reverend Jim, but at the same time, Ash has at least been a coordinator within the last 5 years, and he's coached safeties, which is also a need. And he's also, he's got a long track record of being a recruiting coordinator and all that stuff. And I know people are talking about listening to Brian's show, and, like Brian has a lot more, direct insight into, things like this history of apparently, like he's hard to work with and things like that. I mean, there are a lot of guys who have fit that bill as well. The question is going to come down to, can he get it done or not?
Yeah, that's all I care about. I don't need to take these guys out for a beer. Like, that's not what I care about. I don't, not that they would, but like, that's not what I care about, to be perfectly honest with you. And like, there's people in the chat talking about how he's going to destroy the culture that Notre Dame built. You know who built that culture? Marcus Freeman. And Marcus Freeman brought him in. So, I feel like Marcus Freeman is a good judge of who's going to be a part of this culture and what it's going to look like.
And that's, at the end of the day, it's Marcus Freeman's career. It's Marcus Freeman's team. And it is, as you said, it is his culture that is on the line in all of this.
I just, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, it's just like with anything, when a coach comes in and, you're talking about how they're going to coach up players and all of that. Like, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what they can do. Right. I wasn't sitting in on the interview. Maybe he's had a come to Jesus moment and he's a different guy than he was when he got this reputation. I don't know the answer to that. And you know what? Here's the other thing. Nobody in the chat has that answer either, because they weren't in on the interview either. So until Marcus Freeman jumps in the chat to defend his, choice, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. Now, I'll be the first one to say he's doing a lousy job and he's busting the culture, right? If that's the case. But until that point, I'm not willing to go down that road. Now, there was one comment I wanted to bring up before we get past this.
Do it.
Jason Smith, I thought, made an interesting point here. He says, also wondering how hard it would be to hire another elite defensive coordinator without them being able to bring in their own guys. I think that's a legit point, because now,
because that's happened before, whether it was the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. Those guys want to bring in at least a few of their own guys. And Marcus Freeman has a full staff other than the coordinator that he's completely confident in. Otherwise.
Right. So I'm not saying that this is the case, or, guys are turning down the job because they can't bring in their own guys. Here's the reality that we know. The only opening that we're aware of is defensive coordinator. That's it. There's no other opening, right? And we've seen in multiple occasions where guys are like, I need to bring at least one of my guys so that they understand what we're trying to do. That is not available at Notre Dame. So, we'll see what happens, man. Like I'm just not ready to be super negative about it. Number one, because I don't have enough information. And number two, because I am willing to see how it works, to see how it goes.
To me, the bigger question, like if Marcus Freeman is really this close to punching it up, like, again, hasn't even been a full week since they played in the national championship game. Like the timeline of this, like he's moved very fast to get to Chris Ash.
Right.
What do you think about that? Like the fact that it seems like it is so imminent. Al Golden, again, he was just officially introduced today. Like he left town to go down there to Cincinnati to interview last week. So it's been less than a week since Al Golden even interviewed down there with the Bengals.
That we know about.
It seems like, again, like if you really want to find the best guy, it seems like this happened pretty quickly. What do you think?
Look, I agree. Here's the thing. We all know, we've talked about this a bunch, right? When you're an AD, you've got a short list of coaches for every sport that you would go after if, you lost a coach, right? As a head coach, you've also got that short list of guys that you would go after if there's an opening on your staff, right? The only thing I can surmise by the speed that this went is that he was a candidate on Marcus Freeman's short list for this job. Like, I just don't see how it would be possible.
No, that's fair because, like I said, I don't think that the Al Golden thing, like Zach Taylor, the Bengals head coach, like obviously he and Al Golden have, they have each other's phone numbers in their cell phone.
Right. Yes.
Right. So like he, like very conceivable that Zach Taylor called Al Golden weeks ago and started having whatever preliminary conversations about this.
Right, because
so
I'm sure
I don't think it just happened.
List.
Yeah, it didn't just happen last week.
Correct.
Is my point.
And look, if Al Golden was considering leaving Notre Dame, I do believe that Al Golden is a good enough person that he would have went into Marcus Freeman's office and said, "Hey, look, here's the situation.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm leaving, but there's a chance."
And if it comes up, yeah,
right.
Like you're not. So Marcus Freeman's not caught off guard by it.
And at that point, if you're Marcus Freeman, and I'm sure this is what he did, is he went to his short list and he started to make a list. Maybe he didn't have a short list. Let's just say he didn't have. He's an unprepared coach. He doesn't have a short list. He started making a list at that point, and somehow Chris Ash got on that list, and it obviously expedited the process at that point. Now, if it was going to be a quick process, I think we all would agree that we figured it would be Mike Mickens as the defensive coordinator, right? In-house, knows what he's doing, friends, the whole deal. Mike Mickens has been passed over twice now for the defensive coordinator spot. Makes me a little nervous about
and apparently, the reason why he's been passed over this time, even though Marcus Freeman has sung his praises in public previously, is because of the fact that he doesn't have coordinator experience. He is a position coach, so he doesn't have experience, and they wanted someone with experience. And again, like Chris Ash obviously has extensive experience. Now you can, debate, his credentials and things like that. I will say, like when you look at, so he's hired by Urban Meyer prior to the 2014 season. He takes over a defense that's ranked 110th in the nation in pass defense, 46th in total defense. His first season, the defense ranks 19th in total defense. So they go from 46th to 19th in the first season. They rank 26th in scoring defense, 13th in pass efficiency defense, and 28th in pass defense. So they went from 110th to 28th in pass defense, and they also, improved in total defense as well, fairly dramatically. And then the next season, in 2015, his second season, the year after they won the national championship, and remember, like whatever the rankings say, they won a national championship with that defense. So, and then 2015, number 6 in pass efficiency defense, number 9 in total defense, number 9 in sacks, number 22 in rush defense, among, where those teams where that defense ranks. So I guess my point is like even in year one, some of the stuff in 2014 at Ohio State, maybe not elite, but like when you look at where that defense came from to where it got that season and won a national championship, there was at least pretty strong progress. Now, the difference here is he's taking over a defense that was legit elite. So the question is, can he keep it at that level?
Right,
He doesn't have to make a bunch of strides. He has to keep it there. And it's pretty non-negotiable, really.
Oh, I agree.
Coming off what they just came off of. Like the bar is set very high for this guy or any guy who's going to walk in the door because of what he's taken over here.
Completely agree.
And the experience that he's got coming back.
This isn't a learn on the job, as somebody said, ease into the job situation. This is you need to pick up where we left off. And if you're not going to be better, you at least need to be as good, right? I mean, that's an absolute must. And so, what's that relationship going to be like with Mike Mickens? What is that relationship going to be with Marcus Freeman? What was outlined by Marcus Freeman as the non-negotiables, coming into this situation, right? So I think all of that is in play. I'm curious about all of it. We're never going to know the answers to all of that, but this is a results-oriented business, right? Yeah. And so I need to see some results. Nothing I see in the spring is going to tell me whether this was or was not a good move. I'll just say it now. There's going to be some inklings. There's going to be some little things here and there, but the reality is nothing is going to me, allow me to make an opinion either way. Till they get some games under their belt, I get to see what this defense looks like. Are they still going to, blitz a lot? Are they still going to be, fundamentally sound? With the rest of the coaching staff coming back, I feel pretty good about that possible situation. You know what I mean? Yeah. With them just kind of picking up where they left off. It's got to call plays. I think his history as a head coach, albeit not successful, Al Golden, I think did play a part because he is older than Marcus
Golden was
Freeman.
At least good at Temple for a few years.
He was, you're right. He just wasn't good at Miami.
Yeah.
But, he at least brings that experience as an older coach because he's like 7 years older than me. So that puts him, I think, like 51 in that neighborhood, 50, 51. So he's had head coaching experience. He's been a coordinator at multiple spots. He does have that kind of going for him, right? Same as like Mike Denbrock, even though he's never been a head coach, he's been around the block, right? So that kind of meshes with what Marcus Freeman has done in the past, right? He's not bringing in some greenhorn, which you could argue Mike Mickens is, right? And so maybe he didn't feel comfortable taking a chance because of where the defense is right now on a first-time defensive coordinator.
Well, and do we consider Jared Parker a first-time coordinator last year? Like he got to call his own plays for the first time. Obviously, he held the title
him a first time
at West Virginia, but he really. So, and that whole, like going down that, I don't want to fully go down that rabbit hole, but at the same time, like, did Marcus Freeman learn from that experience? Maybe. Like, that's
fair.
Did that play into his decision that I can't afford a first-time coordinator with everything, with the stakes that are on the line now because we're coming off a national championship and all these different things. But again, you can understand that rationale, but you're also hiring a guy who himself, it's been a few years since he's been a coordinator. Yeah. But again, that also is not that far off the path from where Al Golden was.
That's true. A lot of similarities. I will say that. I think some of them are a little skewed towards, hey, there's a lot of similarity, but there are some similarities there. I will say that for sure. I will say that. And if you remember when they brought him in, not everybody was sold on Al Golden being the defensive coordinator. I just want to put that out there. People swear that people worship at the altar of Al Golden now, but people were very skeptical.
Like I said, going, when they hired him, as well as after year one, there were a lot of people who were selling on Al Golden still at that point. At the very, and at best were on the fence about Al Golden. There are a lot of people who were ticked off.
Which is why I'm taking the slow approach. Like I realize like takes and I'm not saying anybody in particular, right? But like strong takes are what gets clicks and people get fired up. I'm just not prepared to do that. That's just not where I am. I don't know enough.
I like this one. DK, thanks for the super chat. Vince, he wants you to read this.
Okay. There's absolutely no way this deal with Ash doesn't get signed. Apparently DK is not a fan of Coach Ash. So, and I only speak in like absolutes.
That's right. That's right. Was it about a year ago at this time? I guess maybe a little earlier.
Yeah, it was about now. I mean,
That was December. I think it was December.
Oh, was it? Okay.
We were
well,
having
either way.
Den Brock conversation.
Yeah, either way, it's legit.
Yeah.
It's legit. Hey, man, I was wrong. It's okay. I'm happy. Believe me, ecstatic to be wrong, by the way, on that one.
Andy Saylor, would we rather have Mickens or Ash? What do you think?
I had pretty much sold myself to the fact that Mike Mickens was going to get the job, so I was fine with it in my brain. You know what I mean? And so I don't want to say one or the other because there's also a lot of question marks about Mike Mickens being the coordinator. A lot of unknowns that we just don't know. Maybe he doesn't think like Al Golden. Maybe he doesn't think like Marcus Freeman when it comes to play calling and some philosophical things and all of that. So maybe he was going to come in and change up the I don't know. I also don't know much about Coach Ash. So I guess from a familiarity standpoint, I would take Mickens over Ash, but at the same time, the track record of Ash is better because he's been a coordinator.
Roger Dodger with his comment saying that he is best as a co-coordinator, and that it sounds like that could be on the table for Mickens as well, which would kind of intrigue me because you're getting Mickens' experience. He is more a part of the game plan and whatever aspects that he's involved in, and Ash has been a co-coordinator before, so that's been out there. So I would be that kind of it does kind of intrigue me because I do feel like they've got to. It's concerning, like in terms of like you're literally talking about outside of your coordinators, you're talking about one of your two best position coaches that you have on the roster in terms of both recruiting and development.
Yep.
He hits both.
Yeah, absolutely. So
he's one of two guys, maybe three, who we haven't seen enough of Max Bulla as a recruiter, but like Mickens, McCullough, like both of those guys hammer it both in development and the recruiting aspect.
As DK would say, elite. But I actually mean it. So
yeah, that's right.
I mean, and he bringing in a defensive coordinator without letting them bring in their own guys. Listen, here's the pitch, right? Like the pitch that Marcus Freeman gave, as far as we can tell, the pitch that he gave to Chris Ash is like, look, I'd love to have you as my DC, but here's what's going to happen. I'm going to make Mike Mickens your co-defensive coordinator, and you can't bring anybody with you. Like, I don't know that every defensive coordinator, any high-level defensive coordinator be like, yeah, that's a great plan. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm willing to do that. You know what I mean? Because a lot of guys are going to feel like they got their legs cut out from under them.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly.
I think that there's some validity to that he was willing to accept some of those terms to come in.
Mike says Freeman shouldn't be letting Ash or anyone else run their own defense. This should be Freeman's defense and style of play. Ash should coordinate in the structure of Freeman's defense. I mean, Al Golden was running his own defense for 3 years. So, I don't know. What do you think about this, Vince?
It wasn't Marcus Freeman's defense when Al Golden was here. So,
yeah,
I don't know how you have that kind of a demand. Now, I think you say, look, my overall philosophy of defense is this. So whatever you do with this defense, I'd like you to remain within this philosophy. That's absolutely understandable. That's how you head coach, right? You don't want somebody coming in and just doing their own thing without any kind of checks and balances. But it hasn't been Marcus Freeman's defense since he stopped being the defensive coordinator.
Exactly.
Right? He's got his thumbprint on it. He's got his fingerprint, but it's not his. And so you do have to let a defensive coordinator come in and adapt with their own identity and things like that. But overall, like, look, this is what we want from a philosophical standpoint. And I think he stays under that umbrella.
Yeah. So Michael says, like he said prior, Elko brought in Lee with him and they fired the existing defensive line coach. Not really. Well, I guess they did. They did because
he brought Lee with him. I know that part.
Right. He brought Lee, but because remember, Elston coached linebackers for a couple years, and it was, pretty unspectacular. And then when they brought Elko back, Elston moved to defensive line coach, and the defensive line play got better right away. And he definitely brought Clark Lee with him, and Lee obviously took over as coordinator after that. So you're right. Yeah, I mean, again, there's also a difference between bringing, like one guy and a full, potentially 3 or 4 guys, whatever it happens to be. Right. So, because I'm just, yeah. I'm just thinking Al Washington is obviously a target of a lot of people. I think that maybe that calmed down a little bit this year, but you're not just going to purge the whole defensive staff because you want to bring somebody in, is my point.
100%. And
because they've come to a point where they've got a lot of great staff cohesion.
Yeah, exactly. This staff is very good, and you don't want to lose them. And so I'm good with that.
All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. Anthony, thank you very much for the super chat, and appreciate you saying that as always. Chad Bowden, the Chad Bowden news. And we'll have plenty of time to continue with the Chris Ash conversation, by the way. So the general manager, Notre Dame general manager Chad Bowden, leaves Marcus Freeman's staff. He takes the same position at USC, reported $1 million. What was your reaction to that when you heard that news? I was fairly shocked, I think. But then it was like quickly shocked, not shocked, I think. I don't know. What do you think?
My initial reaction was, yeah, it's LA, it's USC. Shocker. They threw a bunch of money at what they wanted to get. Like, that didn't surprise me at all. And it didn't surprise me that he took it, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, this was a year ago where he was going to leave because he was going to get paid more. Yeah. And because they were going to throw more money at him, and Notre Dame countered, and he decided to stay. It was about the money.
And that's
why it's about Jesse the money.
Jesse and I were texting about this. It's like he was obviously going to leave at some point. It was a matter of time.
Right.
To me, what's most disappointing about that, and look, I get it. Like, guys have careers to build and all that kind of stuff. But like, this was a guy who Marcus Freeman knew, became friends with at Cincinnati. Freeman brings him over here to Notre Dame, and it changed the recruiting operation. Obviously, like the recruiting operation under Marcus Freeman and Bowden has flourished, whatever you want to say. But like, as much as he has done for Notre Dame's recruiting efforts, 4 years ago, nobody knew who this guy was, so
right.
So I guess my point is, like, has he been great? Yeah. Is there room for improvement? Yeah. And so is he completely irreplaceable? Absolutely not. I think that there are a lot of other guys who can still do a really good job when you combine the fact that they're working with Marcus Freeman and everything else that comes with being here at Notre Dame.
I will say that it's not like Notre Dame has had back-to-back-to-back number one recruiting classes, and there's like you said, there's no room for improvement. I think Chad Bowden was instrumental in what Marcus Freeman was doing on the recruiting trail and all of those different things.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. I'm not taking away. Look, I still think him leaving is the biggest negative of the offseason so far. Of anybody that's left the program, to me, he's the biggest one. He's the biggest hurt. That doesn't mean he's irreplaceable. I think there's two things can be correct at the same time. You know what I mean? And so you've just got to do your due diligence to find the right person to take his spot, right? You want to throw some money at Dre Brown, get him back from Illinois. Okay, cool, because he understands, what's happening here at Notre Dame. If you've crossed paths with somebody, or if there's somebody in house that you really like, whatever, but you want to make sure that they're ready to take on the mantle and the immense responsibility that is recruiting at Notre Dame, because it's unique. It's absolutely unique, right? And I think Chad did a wonderful job. But again, Notre Dame hasn't had, they haven't even had back-to-back top 5 classes, right? So there's absolutely room for improvement. This is not a job that only one guy can do, okay? And he's going to do the job a lot differently at USC than he did at Notre Dame. So, because just of the makeup of the situation. They paid him $1 million, man. I don't blame the guy. You only have X amount of time to make money in your life. You want to go make $1 million? Here's the difference. $1 million isn't going to go as far in LA as it does here in South Bend. I can tell you that.
No, but at this, and I get that, and I've seen people talk about that. But I mean, let's also be honest. The difference is probably what, $250,000. So like,
that's massive. I like everybody's like, oh, he was weak. He was weak for taking the money.
It's massive to you and me. Yeah, but my point is, like, you're gonna, $1 million in LA will still go a long way. $1 million,
100%.
Yeah,
and look,
that's my point.
It is a very small minority of people that can say they've been offered $1 million a year to do their job, right? I've never been offered $1 million a year to do my job. I know you never have.
And we never will.
And so I will never be faced with that opportunity, okay? But if I'm looking at the long-term, future of my family, I'd be taking a real hard look at whoever offered me $1 million. I can tell you that right now. So it just is what it is, man.
My question, though, is this, Vince. Why is the answer to everyone's question Brady Quinn? Like when people wanted to make Brady Quinn Notre Dame's general manager as soon as this happened. I get obviously why they want him to be the guy who's broadcasting Notre Dame football games on NBC. I mean, that's obvious. He's working for another network. He's on TV. He's, photogenic. He's he's the guy. He's got a jaw chiseled out of stone, and he's Brady Quinn and everything else, and doing all his stuff. But if Bowden is leaving Notre Dame to make $1 million a year at USC, why would Brady Quinn want to take a pay cut to do more work year round chasing recruits in college football?
Kissing the butts of 16 and 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
That's a fairly thankless job, to be perfectly honest right now. Look, Brady Quinn loves Notre Dame. There's no doubt about it. He wouldn't have started that
stuff and everything that he's done. Yeah.
Right. He loves Notre Dame, and he's not afraid to hide it. And I love that about him. But you're right. Number one, he's not moving his family to South Bend. Okay. Number two, he's got a pretty sweet gig, man, with doing what he's doing and having his hand in what Notre Dame is doing from a recruiting standpoint and from a roster retention standpoint. He's as in as you can get without being as in as you can get. You know what I mean?
You can basically use him as a recruiting tool anyway.
Yes. Yes. 100%. And you say Manti, you're just picking the Notre Dame greats, and you want him to come back and work at Notre Dame. That's just how'd it work out with Autry Denson. How about that?
Yeah.
Not great.
Yeah, I mean, Manti, I saw somebody said he's not leaving the West Coast. I mean, he's working for the NFL Network. He's just starting his TV career. And the fact that he's living on the West Coast means he is that much closer. Basically, he's 4 hours closer to where he's from in Hawaii than if he was sitting here in South Bend, So he's got the best of both worlds right now.
I just don't see those guys packing up shop to come and
look, you don't want a celebrity in that position anyway, because it's still, and I'm not saying, they have to identify talent and they have to communicate with those, there's so much that goes into that, $1 million. Chad Bowden is earning that $1 million, and obviously he earned it, here to get him that opportunity. But again, for a guy like Brady Quinn, I don't know what Manti Te'o is making right now, but again, there's so much more work that goes into it, chasing high school kids around the country. I just couldn't see someone with those kind of profiles, Brady Quinn, Manti Te'o, I just couldn't see them taking that, wanting to step into that kind of position because of all the work that comes along with it.
Right. Yeah, it's just not going to happen. You need somebody. I don't want this to come off wrong, but you want somebody that's hungry, that is just going to be just getting after it every single day.
And that's basically what Chad Bowden was.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that those guys aren't hungry doing what they're doing. It's different, man. Like, it's different. They don't have to do that to make that kind of money. They don't have to. You know what I mean? Like, they're still very involved. Manti came with 2 home games this year. Brady Quinn's doing the fund. Like, they're very, very involved, but they're not going to be doing it on a day-to-day basis. That's not their calling. That's not their day job. That's not who they are. And as much as I love Brady Quinn and what he's done for Notre Dame, and this is just a hypothetical, who knows if he can run an office and he can run a schedule and he can do the recruiting. Like, maybe that's not his thing. Not everybody is that organized. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. There's a lot that comes with it. Again, there's a heck of a lot. I'm not saying that like what Brady Quinn does, because he's also hosting a morning radio show every day, and there's a lot of work.
I forgot about that.
That comes with that. So he does that year round, or in addition, to his football stuff. But when you look at how the schedule breaks out, there's just like so much more day to day. And as we all know, recruiting never stops. Like he is,
right.
You always have to be on. And if you've got the profile of a Brady Quinn or a Manti Te'o, there's just not the incentive to want to jump into that kind of lifestyle. I don't think.
Hey, if Marcus wants to pay $500,000, I'll be
You're there. You're there. You're ready to
I'll be the recruiting guy. I'll be the GM. Let's go.
Them. All right.
Let's go. It'll guarantee that my kid has someplace to kick in the wintertime.
There you go. Got the indoor. Beautiful.
Oh, man. But working in the front office of a college program, I think would be exhilarating personally. I think that would be an absolute blast. So,
in terms of Bowden, like you said, you can't blame him, and I can't either for taking the $1 million. But the fact that he's going from Notre Dame to USC.
The fact that he's flirted with 2 of Notre Dame's biggest rivals,
right?
Michigan and USC. It's almost like,
Michigan got him a raise, and now he's leaving for USC
like,
a year later.
You wanted to go, okay? So deuces.
It's kind of like it's like a pro wrestler turning heel. It's like when Hulk Hogan started painting the beard black, and he was doing the NWO stuff and all that. It's like that's what this is like, going from Notre Dame to USC.
Yeah, that's very it's very turncoatish. Michigan and then USC. It's like you couldn't have flirted with Florida or Georgia or anybody. Literally any other school would have been better. But it's whatever.
Exactly. It is amazing though, like how quickly, again, it's like media dump Friday when all this happened with Chad Bowden. It's amazing, like how quickly people pivoted from the shock of that to the outrage, of Chris Ash. The fact that Chris Ash, the possibility that he might be hired as the defensive coordinator, that just swallowed up everything. Just took all the sting away from Chad Bowden. It's like, we're outraged about this though. We don't want, this guy. We don't know him, but we don't want it.
True. All right. 100%. So he kind of made out like a bandit on that one for sure. So, yeah.
Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
It's already time. Oh my gosh, we've been going for a while. I didn't
been here a while.
Okay, let's roll, baby. Rapid fire it up.
All right, we're gonna keep the Bowden, Ash, Golden conversation going in rapid fire. Which is the bigger deal? Losing the general manager, Chad Bowden, or losing defensive coordinator Al Golden?
I said it earlier, and I'll stick to my guns on this one. I think Chad Bowden leaving is a bigger loss in the long run. Now, again, there's still room for improvement in whoever you bring in. Like I said, Notre Dame didn't have top 5 classes every year that he was here, but I also think he did a pretty darn good job. So I think that's a pretty big loss. So I'll take Chad Bowden on this one.
I'm going with Al Golden, because of all
Nice.
the reasons, like this is a truly elite defense. And it's not like you're going from it would have been one thing if they could have taken that baton and gone Al Golden, Jim Knowles, you go from the guy who lost in a national championship game to the guy who just won a national championship. But Knowles is going to Penn State instead, which is like that whole thing itself. Like I would like to know some of the, what exactly is going on there. But I think it's Golden because while as I was saying earlier, the bar is set very high for Chris Ash or whoever this happens to be now. Like there is no room for going from where Al Golden left this defense to anything, that is below that standard right now. I do believe that as good a job as Chad Bowden did, I think the creativity is the biggest thing that they'll miss. And I know some people, don't like the shamrock or the, like the leprechaun outfits that they wear.
Oh,
And I mean,
yeah.
obviously
The
I
Secret
would,
Service stuff
and some of this other stuff. But
yeah.
look, the kids obviously like it, and that's why they do it. You have to remember that. So maybe some of that creativity is missed, but at the same time, all these positions, like the player personnel, the general manager, these are all still relatively new positions to college football. So I think that there is still some opportunity out there, and there are a lot of other really good people working in similar positions in college football that I think that they can go out and get. Sure. Like getting the guy who can actually coach an elite defense on the field. To me, I think that is the bigger deal because of where Notre Dame is right now, just coming off a national championship. Fill in the blank. After the departures of both Golden and Bowden, your feelings about next season are blank.
Still very positive because the roster is still there. And I still have a lot of faith in the roster and what they're going to be able to do and all of that. So I'm still very positive on what the season outlook is going to be for next year. I regardless of what happened, my season outlook is very, very positive right now.
Mine is, it remains positive, but it's a little bit more uneasy just because of, again, like this defensive stuff. Like we came to pretty much know that Al Golden's defenses were going to step up in the biggest moments and do what they were supposed to do. Now that obviously kind of dissipated a little bit a week ago in the national championship game, but other than that, like as we talked about, you didn't have to ask Riley Leonard to do more than what he was comfortable doing because of the comfort that you had in Golden's defense. And so I think that until we there's for me, there's going to be some uneasiness, whether it's Ash, or unless it ends up being, some higher profile guy. There's just a little bit more uneasiness going into next season because I think that there is going to be a natural drop off of some sort. The question is going to be how far off it drops. With Bowden, his impact won't necessarily be felt next year, but is all it's going to take is one recruit flips or why aren't we getting this guy, that kind of stuff, and people are going to be going nuts about that as well. So, but I mean, obviously his impact I think is going to be felt farther down the road potentially.
Completely agree. And that was one point I was going to make is that Chad Bowden leaving doesn't affect 25. Like it doesn't affect that year for me. Right. You know what I mean? Because his effect has already happened for the guys that are on the roster. But I think his effect will be longer lasting.
Mr. 2.0 says, I think Bowden is replaceable. He did a good job, but I think he's replaceable, and they could even use the opportunity to get someone with new ideas that will help recruiting.
Look, everybody is replaceable. Marcus Freeman's replaceable. Bavakwa is everybody's replaceable.
That's exactly right. And it's not limited to sports. It's literally everywhere.
That's right. I'm replaceable. You're replaceable. Brian's replaceable. Like everybody's replaceable. Okay?
We're all cogs in the machine, Vince.
That's right, man. That's 100% accurate. So, yes, Chad Bowden is replaceable. There's no doubt about it. The question is, will the replacement be better? We'll have to wait and see. just like I'm going to wait and see on Chris Ash.
Yeah.
We're all replaceable, John. I don't know why you had to point me out.
Man, John coming hard at Vince. Vince is
Jeez.
replaceable.
You're not wrong. I am replaceable. There's no doubt about it.
Scale of 1 to 10 with Marcus Freeman set to hire Chris Ash potentially as defensive coordinator. What's your concern that Mike Mickens could be gone soon?
It was much higher when this news first broke. Now we're hearing that there might be a co-defensive coordinator situation. That makes me feel a little bit better. So my concern level has gone down, but it was very, very high when this news first broke.
I think I'd put mine at an 8. I see John at a 10. DK is a 9.9. He is pushing there. The co-defensive coordinator, that's where, maybe this shifts a little bit, and again, it helps get Mike
Helps keep
Mickens
him around.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably comes with a raise,
Right.
all of those things that keep you happy.
Yeah, because again, when you're an elite position coach and an elite recruiter, at some point, it's like, well, are you going to become a coordinator or aren't you? And depending on what his goals are, we know that he's really close with Marcus Freeman, but look, Chad Bowden was close with Marcus Freeman as well, and look where he was. He got a big offer, and he went and took it. And so it feels like my concern is fairly high, but like you said, maybe just a little bit lower, but still fairly high. That maybe after next season, Mike Mickens does go off and find that opportunity.
You used the word soon. So is that like
Right.
this off season? Is it like next year? Like, it concerns me that he will. It's always been a concern of mine that he'll leave if he's not the DC. Right.
Right.
And so
I didn't want to put a definite time on it.
Right.
Because,
I get it.
Because it's like, we don't know exactly what's going to happen or what he's thinking. Or
Right.
Stuff. Like, so to me, soon is like, well, maybe within another season or so.
Sure. Yeah. Here's the thing. I would say that if I'm talking about this offseason, my concern level is like a 2. If we're talking about a year from now, it raises up to like an 8 or a 9. How about that?
And that's kind of how I'd be in there as well.
Yeah. And yes, DK, you are absolutely correct. Family is not replaceable. DK's getting all soft on us.
Man, it's like one of the softer things I think he's ever said.
I know. I was referring to like jobs. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not like killing people off. Like, that's not.
Yes, exactly. At work, we're all replaceable.
Correct. Wow.
Okay, so we were going to do that we in, we out show on Friday, and then, as we said, we ended up having to cancel it because of my travel schedule. But we had subscribers submit questions for that. So here's one that was submitted that we didn't get to use. He says, much like the 2024 schedule, the 2025 schedule has only one really tough game again. Notre Dame goes 11-1 again to a surprising opponent. In or out on that, Vince?
I'm out on that, on the part that they only have one tough opponent. Like, I'm not in on that. I'm sorry. They open up at Miami. And then the next game is a home game with Texas A&M, or at least the next game on the schedule. They may insert a game in there because there's a bunch of TBAs. So that right off the bat, because right now, I don't know what I'm looking at the schedule, and it looks like there's 3 currently ranked teams on the schedule. Now, I assume that's the ranking coming out of this season. But you've got Miami at 23, Texas at 22, and Boise State at 24. That's 3 ranked opponents on your schedule. So I'm not going to say that they only have one tough game. I think they have more than one tough game. So I'm out on that part. Going 11-1, sure. I mean, it's January. You know how far away? Like, I don't even know who the starting quarterback is going to be. Like, I'm not ready to start making proclamations on Notre Dame's record, but I think they're going to be good. And I think the schedule is a little bit harder than this year. But again, that all remains to be seen too, because there's going to be another portal window in a couple of months. So, we don't even know what these rosters are going to look like in the fall. So I'm not ready to say they're absolutely going to be 11-1 on the year.
Yeah, I'm out on it as well. I'm not ruling out 11-1, but
absolutely not.
I want to see these quarterbacks get some live reps in the spring. I want to see what they look like. I want to see them get some reps in fall training camp. I want to see what the offensive line is going to look like. I want to see who the defensive coordinator is going to be. Like, we know none of that so far. And then, like you said, there's going to be more tough games on this schedule. And like the ACC part of the schedule is a little bit more forgiving. Well, not more forgiving, but you've got Miami, and then otherwise, what are those? You've got Boston College on there. Like, what
they're
are they going to look
bunch.
like?
They're scrappy,
scrapping all, and all that.
They're
like,
scrappy.
You obviously have Texas A&M and Boise State coming here as well. Even though I think
Cuse, you got the Cuse. They're not going to be an easy. They're not going to be a pushover team next year, I don't think.
Right.
So I mean, look, there's USC. USC's paying $1 million for their GM, so they're going to be good. So yeah, there's more than one tough game on the schedule. I don't buy that.
Yeah, I've got to be out on it as well. Fill in the blank. It's blank that the 2027 National Championship game will be January 25th in Las Vegas.
It's so late. It's so late. Like it's
only 5 days later. It's only 5 days later than this year. It was like 2 days ago.
That would be now. It's the 27th, right now. Like the championship game would be right now. And the only other football game after that would be the Super Bowl. Like that's nuts. But that's what we're all signing up for because there's probably going to be a 16-team playoff and, all of those different things. So that's what we've signed up for. I really enjoyed the playoff this year. I've always wanted to go to that stadium in Vegas. And when Notre Dame's in the national championship game in 27, I'll have that opportunity. So
I don't think we're driving to that one, though.
We are not. Allegiant Airlines for the win on that one.
There you go, baby. There you go.
I'll fly Allegiant.
Yeah, that was like the first thing that most people noticed was the January 25th. The first thing I noticed was Las Vegas. It's like,
I'm sorry.
It's like, we need a college football national championship game in Vegas because nobody wants to sleep that week, or that weekend.
Seriously.
Everything, I was kind of wondering, because with like this year, the Peach Bowl was obviously played at Mercedes-Benz, and then they played the national championship game there. I was wondering if they were going to kind of follow that format where they would be doubling up with these traditional bowl sites, and obviously that's out the window.
I think they're going to. I think they're going to start. Like I think you're going to see one, in Indianapolis at some point. I think you're going to see one. I think you're going to see NFL stadiums getting into the mix. Indy, Detroit, like obviously domes, in the north. But I think you're going to see more NFL stadiums getting into the mix for the national title game. I think it just makes sense. That way, a team's not potentially playing in the same place twice within the playoff. I mean, there's definitely a possibility, right? So. Yeah, I actually like that idea of having it in. Yes, I realize that
it is January 25th. Yes, it will be on.
I misspoke. It's not on the 27th. That's my fault.
Yes,
but I also realize like some of these bowl games are in NFL stadiums. Like I get that. But I'm saying like a neutral NFL stadium that doesn't host
that doesn't typically host those kind of games.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Something different, a new place to
go.
And
the more dome stadiums. The more dome stadiums that get built, like Cleveland's trying to build a dome, Chicago's obviously trying to build a dome.
We drove past one in Nashville, didn't we?
That's right. Nashville's building a dome. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we drove right by it. It'll be done by then. So, yeah.
Everybody wants the domes.
We'll drive to Nashville. That drive's easy.
Seriously, that was not a bad drive at all. Fill in the blank. Since we only had the one show, I guess you did a show, but didn't get to talk about this. Kirk Herbstreit's crying last week after Ohio State won it all is blank.
So
crying on TV last week.
So unprofessional is what it was. And it just didn't do anything to help his cause because everybody says that he's a homer for Ohio State, except Ohio State fans. They all think he hates Ohio State, but then everybody else thinks he's a homer for Ohio State.
Right.
I don't know how both those things can be true at the same time, but whatever. I just think it was really unprofessional. That's all. Like if you have a kid on the team, which he does, and he said, I'm sitting here in the booth with my wife watching my son win a national championship, you're too close, man. Like you're too close.
Go do Ohio State radio if that's
Right.
the kind of emotion.
Right.
Like
too close.
You're supposed to be, that's exactly right. Way too close. You're
Right.
supposed to be an unbiased observer and analyst of this sport. And, to do that, I get it. You went there. All these guys went someplace, but you've got to keep that in check.
Right.
How can you present yourself as someone who can, be as objective as possible when talking about all these different teams, especially when ESPN let you broadcast every Ohio State game throughout the playoff? Like,
right.
How can we consider you objective on any of this if that's how you're going to react afterwards? And, like I said, go work on Ohio State radio if that's how emotional you're going to. I'm not saying that no one's allowed to ever get emotional, but to have that kind of reaction, and like you said, you've got your wife in the booth and talking about your son out there on the field and all these obstacles that Ohio State overcame and, whatever else, it's like, miss me with it. Like, just
go
do radio if that's,
that's
what you want to do.
I want to be very clear here. I have no problem with him getting emotional watching his son win a national championship.
No, I don't either.
If that ever happened to me,
would. I would
be too. Yeah. I would be too. I'd be crying probably too, but not on the air. Not when I'm supposed to be an impartial person.
That's right, Josh, because it's not about you. It's about
correct
the team that just won. It's not about you at that point.
And I've never called a game that has my kid involved. I think you have. Have you actually called a game? No, you coached him. It's different. But like, you have to have the wherewithal. And actually, I would have so much more respect for Kirk Herbstreit if he was like, if he went to his bosses like, guys, I just don't think it's a great idea that I call this game. I'm just too close to it. I kind of want to watch it as a dad, not as an analyst, because my kid is, he didn't play. He was on the sidelines dressed with just a jersey tuck. I think he has a heart deal or whatever. So he's on the sidelines. He's not playing, but his son's a part of the team. And that's why he got emotional about it. And I totally appreciate that as a dad. I have no problem with that. But like I said, my respect level will be so much higher if he's like, I just want to sit in the stands and watch this game as a dad. That's where I'm at. And ESPN would, in the right way, they should have been like, you know what? Awesome. We'll get McElroy up here and he'll finish out the season. McElroy was there. We saw him on the sidelines. He was part of the broadcast. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been so easy to do. And I would have had so much more respect for Kirk if he would have done that. So much more. But he didn't, and he looks like a buffoon. It's so unprofessional.
Chief Brody got in right after we were talking about Mike Mickens.
Chief.
He said any word on Mike Mickens. I'm not sure exactly like in what. I see Chief is still here, so I'm not exactly sure like what regards you're talking about. We've talked a lot about Mike Mickens on today's show.
The word is he's employed by Notre Dame still, so
Right. Michael says Ryan Clark wasn't broadcasting the game. I mean, literally, and that's one way to sort of, like maybe Ryan Clark should have been they should have brought Ryan Clark in for a 3-man broadcast, even though a lot of people hate the 3-man booth. I know you don't like the 3-man booth, but maybe there should have been a different kind of balance there considering that.
If it looks like they're going to win, hey, why don't you go ahead and excuse yourself in the last 5 minutes of the game or whatever?
Well, and that's your family. That too. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Just go do that. The game is over now.
Right.
Go be Kirk the dad.
Yes.
Or, and
that's
okay. Do that with your wife. That's absolutely right. But we didn't need that. We didn't read the reaction on TV. I'm sorry. We just didn't.
Right. Yep. 100%. And look, I did what Ryan Clark was able to do this year. Like wasn't a part of any kind of broadcasting or anything that had to do with the game. But then when the game was over, like the next day, he's just calling guys out left and right. Like I appreciated Ryan Clark for that.
I think you kind of said it, but there are enough people who automatically think Kirk Herbstreit is biased against their team because they know that he went to Ohio State. You don't need to prove them right by that response at the end of the game.
Bingo. Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
So during his introductory press conference as head coach of the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson said that he enjoyed beating Packers head coach Matt LaFleur twice a year. Vince, you're a Bears fan. Do you buy or sell your new head coach coming out of the gate throwing heat like that?
Hey, if you're going to throw heat at the Packers, do it now because they're not great. And I think you got a great opportunity to beat them. Look, the Bears should have been 2-0 against
playoff team. They were still a playoff.
I get it, but they also should have been 2-0 against the Packers this year if it wasn't for a blocked field goal at the end. They were 1-1, and that's on the Packers for stinking against the Bears. So I don't think it's going to take a monumental effort to beat the Packers. And they're the rival. And if you want to get on the good side of Bears fans, you better start making fun of the Packers here real quick, and I'm okay with that. I love it. Come with it, baby. Bring the heat.
So just as the Packers would say that, you know, they're in your heads. They're living in there rent free. Oh, you Bears fans, like you can't get them out of your heads. Ryan Poles, when he was introduced a couple of years ago, he came out throwing heat, talking about they're going to run the North and, you know, Packers this. It hasn't worked out well. So I think that you can be big and bold. Like Aaron Glenn in his introductory press conference with the Jets today was big and bold, but he didn't, you know, come out like we're going to kick the Bills' butts and we're going to own the Patriots and all this other stuff. You know, he was just like, hey, we're going to kick some butt, you know, that kind of thing. So I don't know. Like,
hey, work for Kurt Signetti. All right.
Yeah. I mean,
and everybody loves him.
You can get him on your side, but at some point you've actually got to be able to start paying the bills a little bit.
Absolutely. No question.
You got to put up.
Like I said, the Bears should have beaten the Packers both times they played them this year, and the Bears sucked. So I don't think that's setting the bar all that high.
All right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so do you buy or sell the Kansas City Chiefs being in their third straight Super Bowl and in their fifth and sixth years being more impressive than what the Patriots did during their championship days?
It's not more impressive. Not yet. Maybe it will be eventually, but it's not there yet. I had hatred for the. Well, see, here's the difference, though. I was rooting for the Patriots early on in their run, right? When they were just kind of the plucky team and the whole deal. And then it got annoying when all they did was win, right? And I've never liked the Chiefs. So that's definitely, there's some bias going on there. I'm not a fan.
I didn't realize you were always anti-Chiefs. Where did that come from?
Probably just the overplay of Kelsey and Mahomes and,
you've never liked these Chiefs, basically.
Oh yeah. Like just these Chiefs. I could give a crap about the past. I'm talking about this inception of the Chiefs.
Gotcha.
I like Andy Reid, actually. I just think everybody else is just so overdone. It's so overdone.
But I mean, the reason they're overdone is because they're winning at just an insane rate. Patrick Mahomes has won 9 straight playoff games now. That's the longest streak in NFL history, 9 straight playoff games. He's 17-3 in postseason games, or, they are with him.
Yeah.
And, the only postseason losses Patrick Mahomes has are to Tom Brady and Joe Burrow, which is just crazy. Those are the only 2 quarterbacks to beat Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. It's basically, and I said this last night, my wife was like, oh, are they going to keep getting lucky? You think they're going to win this thing? And I think it was when the Bills were leading. And I'm like, yeah, I do, because they have Patrick Mahomes and the Bills don't. And that's
what did Patrick Mahomes do down the stretch, though? What did he do?
He led them to the win. He scored a touchdown. He got him into, when it was time to make a winning play, he made a winning play. They got another, they got the first down that iced the game at the end. If you don't think the difference between those 2 teams is Patrick Mahomes, then we're watching different games, I think.
I don't think that's the only difference. I think it's a difference. I think the play calling is massively different and that goes to Andy Reid.
I would say that
Andy Reid's a freaking genius when it comes to scheming up an offense against a defense.
But Andy Reid has always been a really smart guy. But when did Andy Reid finally start winning Super Bowls? Who was his quarterback? Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, but they won a lot of games in Philadelphia too. He won a lot of games in Philadelphia.
But he didn't win games that mattered.
He didn't win. He went to some Super Bowls, didn't he?
One Super Bowl. He went to one Super Bowl. Gotcha. A Super Bowl with Donovan McNabb. Yeah.
Look, I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes isn't a good quarterback. He's a whiny piece of crap, but he's also a good quarterback.
Man, shots fired.
Oh, I will shoot them all day long. I
didn't realize you
not
felt
a fan.
so. I didn't realize you felt this way about Mahomes.
He's such a whiny person. Not a fan at all. At all.
So I guess to answer my own question,
yes.
It's not quite more impressive, but if they win a third straight Super Bowl, nobody's ever done that. And
yeah, that's fair.
So to win 3 straight, which nobody has ever done, and basically that would be what, 4 out of the last, is it the last 5 or the last 6? 4 out of because this is their 5th Super Bowl in 6 years. So if they end up winning their 4th Super Bowl in the last 6 years with 3 in a row, which nobody has ever done. Like the only other team that has even been to 3 consecutive Super Bowls are the Buffalo Bills, who lost 4 in a row.
Yeah,
like no one's even been to 3 straight at this point. Thank you, Michael. It is 4 out of 6. I got my math got all wonky there when I started thinking about, okay, it's like because they've been in this many, but they lost to Brady and the Bucks in their Super Bowl loss, so, but again, you win 3 straight and you win 4 out of 6. That is some pretty. And the thing is,
company, no doubt.
he's still very young, and as of right now, they show 0 signs of letting up.
And they just keep plugging in different pieces. I get it.
Patrick Mahomes hater. I
can't stand him.
I didn't realize.
Did you watch the documentary, The Quarterback? When it was him. Did you watch that
last year? Yeah.
That's when it all turned for me.
Really? Like, what did he say? Like anything you remember?
I just remember him coming off as just a whiny baby, and I didn't enjoy it. I did not enjoy it at all. And I do think that there is some. I can't. Let me say this. I can't stand people who are like, "Oh, it's a conspiracy, and they want so and so to win." And they have benefited from some serious calls during this run. I'll just say that.
That's interesting. Chief Brody says, "Why don't I hate Mahomes, Sean? Because he's a great quarterback, and I think he, unlike Vince, who thinks he's a whiner, I think he's a fairly good guy, and he's a great talent. So I don't know, but like I will say, kind of like you, I rooted for. Not root for, but I didn't mind like Tom Brady and Belichick and the Patriots for probably the first half of that dynasty.
Agreed.
But it was the later. It was after Deflategate and
Spygate
and all those kind of things, and that like all that as it
and they were winning.
Going, that's when I turned against them.
And nobody likes it when somebody's winning a lot, right? It's like Alabama, and everybody hates Alabama because they won so much. Like, right. I get that's part of it too.
Same deal. Like I didn't mind Alabama,
right,
when they won their first championship,
exactly.
But 6 titles later, like that's when it turned.
I want the Eagles to win so badly. I would even be okay with people continuing to bring up Ian Book as a Super Bowl champion.
I definitely do not want the Eagles, and that's another part of it. I think that I didn't even think about this, but like Chief Brody asked me why I don't hate Patrick Mahomes. He has beaten the Eagles and the 49ers in the Super Bowl. He's beaten the 49ers twice. Those are literally 2 of my 3 least favorite teams. And
That's
so
fair.
The fact that he has beaten them in the Super, and I will be pulling for them because and Jesse will be here tomorrow. Like if there's a team that neither, like if that both of us despise infinitely right now. It is Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's probably why, it's definitely why I don't mind Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs winning all these Super Bowls, because of who they're playing in the Super Bowl.
And I just want to reiterate.
I didn't even think about it, but like psychologically, that's
exactly why you like him. That's okay. You are entitled. And another reason I like Ben Johnson is because he's a Cubs fan, not a White Sox fan.
There you go.
Let's go. And by the way, Ian Book on the practice squad.
Yes.
At the moment, he's not suiting up for the Super Bowl at all. So just
unlike Drew Tranquil, who is starting.
Look, I love Drew Tranquil. And it took me a while to come around to liking Drew Tranquil for very obvious reasons to Sean. Yeah. Couldn't stand him. Could not stand him. But he's like way too great of a guy to not like. That's the problem. Right. So.
And by the way, Rabid Nile Chihuahua, he had this one in here earlier. As a Cowboys fan, this hasn't been the best of weeks for coaching hires and staff departures. Talking about Brian Schottenheimer down in Big D. And I'll save that conversation for when Jesse is in here
save that tomorrow. For Jesse, because I don't have an opinion. So I don't have much of an opinion on the Bears hires either, but, try to get excited.
All right, well, that's going to do it for tonight. Appreciate you being here. A lot of I'll be curious to see where this goes in the next couple of days. Like, we might have something new to
every
talk
24 hours, man. It's like new info, new stuff. So we'll see how that goes.
Hit that like button and, of course, subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast platform, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you very much, Roger Dodger. Appreciate it. Aviation Sports Talk.
Enjoy Chad Bowden, Roger.